It's my pleasure now to introduce the opposition spokesperson, Michael McCormack. Great to have you here, Michael. Just a few brief words of introduction, if I may. Raised on a family farm, lived in the Riverina all his life, elected as a Nationals member for Riverina in 2010. He has held a number of appointments whilst the Coalition were in government, appointed the Assistant Minister to the Deputy Prime Minister in September 2015. In 2016, he became the Assistant Minister for Defence, obviously a portfolio with key ties to the Riverina, two major defence bases, the RAF base and also our own home of the soldier at Kapuka. Then appointed the Minister for Small Business. Michael became the Minister for Veterans Affairs and Defence Personnel, as well as the Minister assisting the Prime Minister for the centenary of Anzac in December 2017, and was appointed Deputy Leader of the House at that time, and was elected as the 14th Leader of the Nationals Party and sworn in as Australia's 18th Deputy Prime Minister in early 2018, as well as the Minister for Infrastructure and Transport. And since the 2022 federal election, has been given the portfolio responsibility of international development and the Pacific, a key region, of course, for us, as all parts of government and the Coalition recognise, in June 2022. Michael also has a keen interest in military history, particularly the First World War, and I know produces fantastic Anzac booklets each year for local children with stories about Anzac Day and its significance, particularly in the Riverina, but more broadly. And of course, prior to entering Parliament, Michael was a professional journalist, and I think at the age of 27 was the youngest editor of a daily newspaper in Australia at that time. Keen sportsman, still plays cricket, parliamentary duties permitting, and is a life member of the Harlequin Hockey Club. So, Michael, welcome.
Well, thank you very much, Mike. I very much appreciate that warm welcome, and to my parliamentary friend, and I'm going to say colleague, Matt Thistlethwaite. And we are good mates, and I think what you've seen today is a show of bipartisanship, and I want you to know that when we talk defence, almost always the Coalition and the Labor parties are as one, and I don't want to be too political, but that can be at risk. That can be at risk if we let other influences take over, and I won't go too far into it, but I think you know where I'm coming from. I really do worry about what a minority government could mean to this country's defence, because there are some in Parliament who get up and who want to curtail our defence spending. And you've just heard from Minister Thistlethwaite about the importance of not only continuing what the Coalition government did through AUKUS and defence base upgrades, but the fact that they are enhancing that and they are building on that, and I commend the government for what they're doing. I really do, and I know that in Richard Marles, in Matt Keogh, we have good senior ministers in those roles who are placing the nation's security and the national defence at the forefront. And of course, veterans are so important. Veterans and the need to look after those people who donned a uniform, who went out at the behest and the request of people such as Matt and I, and gave their all. Not all of them came back broken, and I think that's an important point to make, because I think too often when we look at veterans and when we talk about veterans and when the media covers veterans, I think they make out as if they're all broken, and indeed they are not. And there are many fine examples just in this room here of people who have served in full-time capacities and served in indeed and have given up the uniform, but never the memories. And we also always should look after those people, but know the fact that they are contributing mightily to our society, to civil society. To Natasha, thank you for representing the CDF. I last caught up with the CDF in Port Vila, in Vanuatu, just a few short weeks ago. I was there with Save the Children. He was there in his capacity to launch a new vessel, which had been funded by Australia, which is going to do some vital work for the defence of that wonderful Pacific nation. And when we talk about what we can do in the Pacific, I think that's one of the important strategies that we are taking, that the government continues to undertake, to have those important vessels, to have that combat illegal fishing for those people, to lift their economic activity, but also to help with their local policing. So very important, and it was great to see the new CDF in his first visit abroad to go to the Pacific, to go to Vanuatu, a great friend of Australia's, and to make sure that we had a great presence there, an important presence. I'm here representing, well, I'm not quite sure whether it's Peter Dutton or or Andrew Hastie or Barnaby Joyce or any of our other shadow ministers in this portfolio role, but as Mike has suggested, I did hold the portfolio of Veterans Affairs. I was the 43rd Veterans Affairs Minister. I think we've had more Veterans Affairs Minister. I think it was called Repatriation Minister back in 1917 when the portfolio began, whilst World War I was still raging in Europe and elsewhere. And I was the 43rd, Matt Keogh was the 46th. And indeed, I was probably one of the briefest serving, because I did end up 3 months later becoming the Deputy Prime Minister. But I've never forgotten the importance of the role, the importance of trying to remember the 16,000 acronyms that are in the role. And indeed, whilst I was there for that brief time, I wasn't, as I say, the shortest serving, but we did implement and did put into the Parliament the veteran-centric legislation, which is still of importance today. Indeed, not only I was here only a few short moments, and Paul Irving took me into the wonderful library, and we should be mindful of where we are located today. It is a very auspicious and significant and historic place, and it's a place of remembrance, it's a place of great pride, not just for Sydney, not just for New South Wales, but our nation. And I know Paul mentioned the 60,000 lives we lost in World War I. Brendan Nelson, probably the best Prime Minister we never had, who obviously was the Director of the Australia War Memorial and who keeps giving to this nation, mentioned not only did we lose 60,000 in World War I, we doubled that number from those who died as an effect of their injuries, the shell shock, and all the rest in the 10 years that followed World War I. It must have been such a great drain on our nation. But, you know, they were still willing to serve again in World War II. You find people, you know, you continue to serve, and that long line of khaki, which stretches back from, well, let's say Sudan in 1885 through Gallipoli, through all the conflicts past and conflicts present, and peacekeeping deployments as well. Our nation owes a debt of gratitude to each and every one of you. Thank you for your service. It is important, and indeed the reserves play a huge and vital component in that role. I sat next to Renee earlier on. Wrong move. Wrong move because I gave her my business card, which has my mobile number on it, and sometimes you just know when you give it to somebody, they're going to ensure that they use that to impress upon people who are holding the privileged position of being in Parliament, the importance of their organisation. And for you, it is reserves. And I get that you have to juggle so many things. You have to juggle family responsibilities in many cases. You have to juggle a job, and you have to juggle the role of being a reservist. I don't know how you do it, quite frankly. Time management is always something that is front and centre of anybody who wears a uniform, but thank you. And there are some things that Renee and no doubt others tell us all the time as members of Parliament about what we should be doing and how we should be doing it to preserve and protect our reserves and make sure that we get even more people, because in many cases it's been the reservists who have been the frontline people in conflicts past, Vietnam, etc., but also in more recent challenges such as our floods. And I know Operation Flood Assist, reservists were front and centre of the need to help fellow Australians to rebuild, to pack up their houses and do everything that they did during that time of great challenge. And I know how much that was appreciated, not just by the government, but indeed by those stricken people at the time. So on behalf of the Parliament, I know the government is well aware of how important the role of reservists is. I look forward to continuing in a bipartisan way as much as possible to do what we can to have even more reservists, to have even more people in our military. Matt mentioned the upgrades to our northern bases and touched briefly upon what we're doing elsewhere in the country. I mean, in my hometown of Wagga Wagga, it is the home of the soldier, as Brigadier Annette indicated, Blamey Barracks. It's also the home of a RAF base. If you spend any given time in the Air Force, you will end up at Wagga Wagga. How many people have actually worn a uniform and served at a military base in Wagga Wagga? We'll make it interactive. See? How many of you have been to Wagga Wagga? Everybody in the room. But a fun fact, we've also got a Navy base there where we've got 80 personnel representing the Navy. Our enemies will never know that that's 350 miles from the nearest drop of seawater, and yet we have an important training regime with the Air Force, with our Army. And I've often said that I think that the Colonel, the Commandant of our Army base at Wagga Wagga has one of the most important positions in Army. I appreciate all you good folk in the khaki do too, but indeed Colonel Stone there at the moment does have, because he is training the best and the brightest and the bravest who will go forth. Now I'm going to get myself in trouble with the Navy and the Air Force, but it is one of the most important positions in the ADF. But you all have important positions in the ADF. You are reservists. You are people who want to uphold the fine tradition. You want to make it better. And no doubt that with the emails that Renee is going to send me and that I'm going to try and act upon with the help of the government, with the help of others, we do need to make it easier and better for reservists who do play such an important part in our militia, in our citizenry. So thank you for what you do. Thank you for having this auspicious conference today. Thank you for inviting Matt and I along, because it is important that we hear. And one little thing that I will just say, I loved how the fact that his local petrol station owner asked him one of the questions, and the fact that he knew that he was his local petrol owner, as well as being somebody who obviously the reservists are near and dear to. You've all got federal members. Have a meeting with them. Tell them what your wants and needs and expectations are, because we do need to hear as parliamentarians. We are your representatives. We're not just some glorified people who go up onto the hill in Canberra and debate issues of importance. We do that as well, but it's important that we do hear from people such as yourself and other people who are in the reserves. So please, make an appointment with your local federal member and impress upon she or he the importance of the reserves, because you do play such an integral role in the ADF. You've done it in the past, you're doing it now, and you'll certainly do it in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Michael. I can certainly vouch for that fact. My local member down in Western Victoria is Dan Tehan, the member for Wannon. And Dan has often reached across, both within his own side, but also across the dispatch boxes, to talk to people who can assist with a range of issues that I've raised. So we certainly all have the capacity, especially those reservists, twice the citizen and all that, to talk to your local members and raise issues of concern. So it's a great encouragement and a good reminder for all of us. Are there some questions, either online or from the floor for Michael?
Questions without notice. Are there any questions?
Yes, indeed. Yes.
Mr. John Pearce, quite often in defence we talk near-peer conflict. Near-peer conflict is often the topic in defence nowadays. But with your portfolio, of course, our Pacific neighbours, our dear close friends, think about other things such as climate change. So I'd be really interested in your point of view on the Pacific and where Defence can support.
Well, thank you very much for that. And I have to say, as with Defence, the Pacific has very much a bipartisan attitude to it. I went to the Pacific with Penny Wong, with Simon Birmingham, with Pat Conroy, and we spoke as one. And let me tell you, they were very impressed with the fact that we were as one. I have many meetings with Labor senior ministers about the Pacific and what we should be doing and how we should be doing it. Matt mentioned the importance of taking action on climate, and when we can build sea walls and cyclone-proof infrastructure, roads, bridges, etc. That's really important. What we are seeing is a increasing influence by certain large trading partners of ours from the north with our Pacific neighbours, and indeed this is of concern, and we need to be the Pacific's first partner of choice, as Prime Minister Anthony Albanese just told the Parliament just a few short weeks ago. We've got a few advantages. One of them is the fact that we are generally a Christian society. Another one is the fact that we play rugby league and rugby and netball, and they are sports of choice. Papua New Guinea, I think, is the only nation on earth that has rugby league as its national sport. And there is a push, and I very much support it, to have a rugby league team in the Pacifica, based at Moresby, based also at Cairns. Let me tell you, when you get Samoa and Tonga playing so well in the World Cup, even making the final, you know, there's something to be said for increasing what's called, I suppose, soft diplomacy. But we will always be the first on board when there is a cyclone, when there is an earthquake, you know, HMAS, whatever, will turn up with fresh water, with health professionals and help. And sometimes that will be aided and assisted by reservists. And you know, we will continue to do that. China will continue to play a role in the Pacific, and we need to be, as I said, the Pacific's first partner of choice. And we'll do that, and we'll do that in a bipartisan way.
Any other questions? John.
Michael, John Brennan. I'm glad you talked about Wagga. I enlisted in the Wagga Army Reserve Depot in Docker Street 40 odd years ago.
It's still there.
So
Still operating out of Docker Street.
So I think you're coming to become my local member, so don't go away, I'll talk to you later. And without getting political, Minister Thistlethwaite mentioned the Defence Estate Review. I'd just like to note that whatever the outcomes of that, and I haven't seen it in detail or anything, it's so important for the Army Reserve to maintain its regional footprint and its footprint in the community. And I know that every time we do a review of the Defence Estate, those Army Reserve depots, be they at, you know, Sydney University, you know, campus, or at, you know, Cootamundra, or wherever, they always come under pressure. But they are, I'd just like to note that they are such an important part of the Army Reserve and the way in which we can continue to enlist our soldiers from our community and to maintain that presence in the community in a much broader sense. So, thanks.
I'll almost take that as a statement rather than a question, John, but I totally agree. And let me tell you, if they're going to close them down, I'll be on them. No. Look, the friendship's over. But look, I know that they're important. Matt knows they're important, and even though he's now the Assistant Minister for Immigration, good luck with that portfolio. You thought defence was hard. You know, I know that they'll be looked at. It's also those cadet units. It gives them a place to start to be enthralled about what a career, whether as a reservist, a full-time, or whatever the case might be, might entail. And we need to encourage those school kids too. I take my hat off to those reservists and others who go around to the various careers days at our schools and try to encourage young people to take part. So, but look, we'll certainly be monitoring it closely. But you know, Labor knows the importance of them too. The Greens don't. Did I just say that? Sorry. Next question.
We'll move right on to any other questions.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it. Thank you for your service. Thank you.